The scent of lilies was suffocating. It clung to the air, thick and sweet, a funeral shroud draped over what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. I stood at the altar, my hand resting limply in Leo Vance's, the weight of my custom-designed diamond ring feeling like a lead shackle. The cathedral was a blur of smiling, expectant faces, but all I could focus on was the frantic beat of my own heart, a wild bird trapped in a gilded cage. I had been reborn into this moment, this exact second of exquisite torture. The haze of my previous death, the screech of metal, the shattering glass, the cold, crushing finality, had lifted just as the efficient voice of the priest echoed in the vast space. Leo Vance, do you take Maya Sterling to be your lawfully wedded wife? I felt Leo's hand twitch in mine. Not a nervous tremor but a jolt of purpose. I turned my head slowly, my vision clearing. I saw his profile, the sharp jawline, the intense focus in his eyes that was not directed at me, but at some distant, urgent point beyond the stained glass windows. He wasn't just my childhood sweetheart, my fiancé. He was a man on a mission, a man who had also lived this life before. In that moment I knew. He remembered everything. And his one all-consuming regret was not my death, not the ruin of my family, but her. He released my hand. The sound was not loud, but it echoed like a gunshot in the stunned silence of the cathedral. He didn't look at me, didn't offer an apology or a backward glance. He simply turned and ran. He ran down the polished aisle, a groom in a bespoke tuxedo fleeing his own wedding, a modern-day fairy tale gone horribly wrong. Gasps rippled through the crowd, swelling into a wave of shocked murmurs. His mother, Eleanor, shot to her feet, her face a mask of outrage. Leo, what do you think you're doing? But I knew. He was going to find his white moonlight, his unattainable dream, Isabella Reed. The quiet, ethereal girl from high school he had pined for in our last life. On this very day in the previous timeline, Isabella had boarded a plane to study abroad, a decision Leo had always blamed me for influencing. The memories of our last life crashed over me, the long, silent standoffs because of her. His pleading voice, Maya, Isabella's family is falling apart. She's all alone. It's not easy for a girl like her. Don't you feel any sympathy? Is your kindness just for show? And beside him, Isabella would stand, a fragile flower, her eyes perpetually glassy with unshed tears, so weak, so pitiful, it was impossible to argue without looking like a monster. He always had an excuse. I only see her as a sister. My heart belongs to you. But his eyes, the way they lingered on her with a tender, aching affection, told a different story. I knew Leo. We had grown up together, our families intertwined. The Vances and the Sterlings, a powerhouse alliance forged in boardrooms and backyard barbecues. I remembered a time before Isabella when Leo was my Leo. He'd glare down any boy who tried to slip me a love letter, his possessiveness a strange, comforting constant. Maya, he'd say, none of those idiots are good enough for you. My mom already sees you as the one. I'd pretend not to understand, my heart fluttering. Sees me as what? He'd just smile, a secret, knowing look, and I'd chalk it up to teenage shyness, believing his feelings mirrored my own. Then in our second year of high school, Isabella Fields transferred in. And my Leo vanished. No more walks home together. No more flirty, ambiguous comments. No more roadside flowers or my favorite roasted chestnuts. When I'd tease him about our family ties, he'd look at me with growing irritation until one day he finally snapped, "Can you stop sticking to me like some clingy leech? You're so annoying." I gave up. I kept my distance. I chose a college on the opposite side of the country. It was in our junior year that he slowly seeped back into my life. Checking in, making me laugh, flying across the nation to visit me. My roommates swooned. Childhood sweethearts are the best, they'd sigh. Hope, that treacherous weed, began to grow again in my heart. Why did you come back? I finally asked him one day. I thought you hated me. He looked dead serious. Maya, be my girlfriend. I've liked you all along. What about Isabella? I'd whispered, the name a ghost between us. He waved a dismissive hand. I was a kid. I looked her way a few times. Why are you still hung up on that? My mom always saw you as her future daughter-in-law. What I didn't know then, but learned too late, was that he only came crawling back because Isabella had started dating someone else. He had lost his chance with her, so he settled for me. After graduation, the wedding plans began. In front of my parents, Leo swore he would love me with all his heart. I believed him. I loved him and I looked forward to our future with every fiber of my being. Until Isabella showed up again. This time I was furious. I wasn't a naive schoolgirl anymore. The wedding date was set. I brought in both sets of parents. My father's financial backing was the bedrock of the Vance empire. There was no way they would let Leo jeopardize that. His father issued an ultimatum: cancel the wedding and be disowned. Isabella left in tears, declaring she would go abroad. Leo, heartbroken, gave me the silent treatment for days. I was the one who had to back down to comfort him. Our parents mediated and he finally started speaking to me again. 6 months later we heard the news. Isabella had been killed in a random street mugging overseas. Leo drowned his sorrows in alcohol, landing himself in the hospital. When he woke up he never mentioned her again. Instead he became the perfect husband. Attentive, loyal, doting. He cooked, he shopped with me, he came home straight after work. To the outside world I had it all. My father, seeing his apparent sincerity, began to trust him, giving him more responsibility and deepening our business ties. I thought I would spend a lifetime in bliss. Then the bottom fell out. My father was arrested for economic crimes. In a panic my mother tried to bribe an official. And I discovered the horrifying truth. Leo had never forgotten Isabella's death. He carried the wound in his heart and he blamed my family for it. He had been plotting our downfall all along. While I was desperately trying to clear my father's name, driving on a rain-slicked mountain road, Leo called me. His voice was cold, devoid of any emotion I had ever loved. Maya, if you can get this evidence and bring it back within the hour, you can save your dad. I pushed the car faster, my heart in my throat. I didn't expect the brakes to fail. As I fishtailed, panic seizing me, I called him again. His voice was the last thing I heard. Maya, Isabella died because of your family. It's time to repay that blood debt. Don't worry, I'll make sure your parents are well taken care of in prison. The crash was a symphony of tearing metal and my own shattered life. And now I was back. Standing at the altar, the discarded bride. The murmurs of the guests brought me back to the present. Leo's father, Robert Vance, roared, "If you dare walk out now, I'll disown you." Eleanor's voice trembled. "Leo, whatever it is, can't it wait until after the ceremony?" Leo seemed to come back to himself. He turned, his gaze sweeping over the scandalized crowd before landing on me. A familiar, condescending smile touched his lips. "Maya, you've always been so good and obedient. Don't make a scene. I'll be back as soon as I'm done." The words were a punch to the gut, a perfect echo of a past life where I had swallowed my pride and played the part of the understanding wife. That meek woman was dead. In her place was someone forged in fire and betrayal. Hatred, cold and sharp, crystallized within me. I wanted to strike him down where he stood. I tossed my bouquet of lilies aside. It hit the ground with a soft, final thud. "Leo," I said, my voice cold and clear, cutting through the whispers. "Are you breaking off this marriage in front of everyone?" He frowned, irritated by my defiance. "Maya, I have something to do. Don't be unreasonable. Be good." My parents stepped forward, their faces like stone. "What could possibly be so urgent?" my father, Alexander Sterling, demanded. "That it can't wait until after you've said your vows?" The guests were leaning in, hungry for the drama. I saw my opening. If he cared so much about his precious Isabella, I would help him show the world just how devoted he was. I stepped forward, forcing a pitiful look onto my face, clinging to my mother's arm. "Let him go," I said, my voice softening into a gentle, wounded tone. "Maybe it really is something important. We can talk after he's taken care of it." My parents looked at me, shocked and disappointed. The guests whispered, "What is Leo thinking?" Leo shot me a look of pure displeasure. "At least you know what's good for you," he said coldly. And with that he turned and ran, finally and completely out of my life. As the heavy cathedral doors swung shut behind him, I lowered my head, pretending to cry. But my tears were not of sorrow. They were tears of rage and of a plan beginning to form. I leaned into my father. "Daddy," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "Send someone to follow him. Now." The game had begun. And this time I held all the cards. The silence Leo left in his wake was louder than any organ fanfare. I kept my head bowed, my shoulders shaking with feigned sobs, but my mind was racing, clear and cold as ice. My father, Alexander Sterling, stiffened beside me, his arm a solid pillar of support. He leaned down, his voice a low, concerned murmur meant only for me. Maya, sweetheart, it's going to be. Daddy, I interrupted, my whisper sharp and urgent against his tuxedo lapel. Send someone. No. I need to know where he's going and what he's doing. He pulled back slightly, his eyes searching mine. He saw no heartbreak there, only a fierce, determined fire. After a beat, a flicker of understanding passed between us. He gave a barely perceptible nod and subtly signaled to one of his most trusted aides, who melted away from the crowd. On the dais, Leo's parents, Robert and Eleanor Vance, were scrambling to contain the disaster. Their faces were pale, their smiles strained as they apologized to the guests, trying to brush the entire humiliating spectacle under the rug. They were already acting as if my feelings, my very presence, were an inconvenient afterthought. They didn't ask if I was okay. They didn't ask what I wanted to do. They were trying to salvage their family's dignity, and I was just a prop in their narrative. That wouldn't do. I lifted my head, wiping at my dry eyes with the back of my hand. I walked to the center of the altar, my steps steady on the polished marble. I picked up the microphone the priest had abandoned. Everyone, I said, my voice echoing through the cathedral, surprisingly steady. The murmuring ceased instantly. All eyes were on me, the jilted bride. You've all come from far away to share this day with us. You shouldn't leave disappointed. I could see the confusion on their faces. Robert Vance was making a subtle, cut-it-out gesture from the sidelines. I ignored him. The banquet is paid for, I continued, forcing a small, brave smile. There's a mountain of food that hasn't been served. Please, let's all go to the reception hall. Enjoy yourselves. Eat well, drink well. To make up for the unexpected entertainment, I'll be adding several more premium dishes and vintage wines to the menu. A ripple of interest went through the crowd. Scandal was juicy, but free lobster and fine champagne were tangible. We'll have music, games, and a grand prize drawing, I announced, handing the microphone to the bewildered MC, whom I instructed to keep the atmosphere lively. My one goal was to keep every single guest from leaving. I wanted them all there, fed and happy for the main event. The crowd, mollified by the promise of a continued party, began to file out towards the reception. My parents stayed by my side, their worry a tangible force. Maya, what are you doing? My mother, Clara, asked, her voice tight with anxiety. Setting the stage, Mom, I replied, my gaze fixed on the door. Just wait. We moved to the opulent ballroom of the Vance's hotel. I moved through the crowd, playing the part of the gracious, wronged hostess, ensuring the wine flowed freely and the most expensive delicacies were circulated relentlessly. The Vance family was paying for this spectacle, and I had no intention of saving them a single penny. About 40 minutes later, my father's phone vibrated. He glanced at it and his face turned a dangerous shade of purple. The veins in his temple throbbed. He looked as if he were about to explode. I calmly took the phone from his hand, reading the update and the attached photos. A cold, grim satisfaction settled in my chest. It was even better than I'd hoped. Stay calm, Daddy, I murmured, placing a soothing hand on his arm. Watch. I walked over to where Robert and Eleanor Vance were huddled, trying to put on a brave face for their business associates. I allowed my lower lip to tremble, letting tears I didn't feel well up in my eyes. Uncle Robert, Aunt Eleanor, I began, my voice choking with expertly feigned emotion. You saw how Leo treated me. He's the one who ran out, and he had the nerve to call me unreasonable. I drew a shaky breath. I was raised as my parents' beloved daughter. I've never wronged him. Hasn't he gone too far? Eleanor had the decency to look ashamed. Robert cleared his throat. Maya, I'm sure the boy has a good explanation. I'm not so desperate that I have to marry a man who despises me, I declared, my voice rising as I turned and snatched a microphone from a passing waiter. The music faltered. Every head swiveled in our direction. I think we're all curious, I announced to the entire ballroom, to know what was so earth-shatteringly important that Leo felt he had to abandon his own wedding. What emergency could possibly justify this? A wave of eager anticipation filled the room. This was the gossip of the century. Let me show you, I said, my voice dripping with false pain. With a few taps on my phone, I cast the live feed onto the giant screens flanking the dance floor. The images were crystal clear, courtesy of my father's very competent man. There, in a secluded garden courtyard not 10 minutes away, were Leo and Isabella. They weren't talking. They were wrapped in a desperate, passionate embrace, their bodies fused together, kissing as if the world were ending. A collective, sharp gasp echoed through the ballroom. Then utter silence, broken only by the sound of Robert Vance's glass shattering on the floor. I took out my phone and dialed Leo's number. It rang several times before he picked up, his voice breathless and thick with irritation. "Maya, what the hell do you want now?" "Leo," I asked, my tone deceptively calm. "Are you with Isabella right now?" "You're being ridiculous again," he snapped, the lie coming so easily. "I told you I had something to take care of. That's it." He hung up. The disconnect was the final nail in his coffin. I wiped at my dry eyes and looked toward his parents, my expression one of utter devastation. "So Leo was lying to me," I said, my voice small but carrying through the silent hall. "Whose daughter isn't a treasure to her parents? How could I ever tolerate being treated like this?" I let a single real tear of fury escape. Since he's been unfaithful in his heart and now in his actions, I'll do him a favor. The engagement is off. From now on, there is nothing tying the Sterling family to the Vance family. I didn't wait for their pleas or their excuses. I didn't look back. I walked to my parents, took their hands and led them out of the ballroom, leaving a storm of whispers and a ruined reputation in our wake. In the car, the silence was heavy. My parents kept looking at me, their faces a mixture of heartbreak and rage. "That bastard," my father finally growled. "I'll ruin him." "He's trash, Maya," my mother said, clutching my hand. "You deserve so much better." I looked at them, these two pillars of my life who had been brought so low in another time. The gratitude that washed over me was so profound it stole my breath. "Thank you," I whispered. "Thank you for being here." I knew what I had to do next. It was a risk, a monumental one, but I had to take it. I took a deep breath. "Mom, Dad," I began, my voice trembling, but this time with genuine emotion. "There's something I need to tell you. It's going to sound insane, but you have to believe me." And I told them everything. The previous life. The marriage. Isabella's death. Leo cold, calculated revenge. My father's arrest. My mother's desperate mistake. The car crash. The brakes failing. Leo's final chilling words. I braced myself for them to think I had lost my mind, that the trauma of being left at the altar had broken me. They simply exchanged a long, shocked look. Then my father reached over and pulled me into a fierce, crushing hug. My mother joined, her tears wet against my cheek. "Hi, baby," my father said, his voice rough with emotion. "You've suffered enough. I won't let that bastard get away with any of it." You believe me?" I stammered, incredulous. My mother cupped my face. "If we don't believe our own daughter, then who can we believe? You've been honest and sensible since you were little. You never lie." In that moment, surrounded by their unconditional love and belief, the last of my fear melted away. The hunted was now the hunter. Leo wanted his precious white moonlight? Fine. He could have her. Let's see how brightly she would shine when he lost everything that had propped him up in his first successful life. Let's see if his perfect love could survive the harsh light of poverty and struggle. The first move was mine. And I had just declared checkmate on his entire future. The 2 days following the wedding that wasn't were a flurry of quiet, determined activity. The public scandal was a raging inferno, fanned by the guests' vivid accounts and the incriminating photos that had mysteriously leaked to the press. The headlines were brutal. Vance heir jilts Sterling heiress for mystery lover, garden of earthly delights, runaway groom's secret rendezvous. I ignored it all. The humiliation was a weapon I had willingly wielded. Feeling it now would be counterproductive. Instead, I sat with my father in his oak-paneled study, the scent of old books and fine whiskey a comforting constant. Spread before us were financial reports, business projections and partnership agreements. "There's no need to worry about the Vance's so-called friendship anymore," my father stated, his voice all business. He pointed to a proposed merger with a tech firm we had been hesitant on due to the Vance's competing interests. "Our business should have expanded into this sector a long time ago. We've been held back by sentimental alliances." It was a relief to hear him say it. We were dismantling, brick by brick, the infrastructure that had supported Leo's rise in our previous life. It felt like draining the swamp before the alligator could even hatch. A soft knock interrupted us. Our housekeeper, Auntie Lena, a woman who had been with our family since before I was born, entered. Her kind face was pinched with distaste. "Miss Maya," she said, her tone laced with disapproval. "Someone from the Vance family is here." She rolled her eyes, a gesture so uncharacteristically bold it spoke volumes. "It's the young master. He's brought a giant diamond ring saying he wants to propose to you again." She looked at me, her expression pleading. "He's afraid you'll soften and say yes. Miss, please don't fall for it again. If he dared to ditch you once, he'll dare to do it a second time." She leaned in, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "And he even brought that shameless mistress along with him. What kind of proposal is this? It's straight up bullying." My father's face darkened, his hands clenching into fists on the desk. "I'll have security remove him." "No, Dad," I said, standing up smoothly. A cold smile touched my lips. "It's fine. I'll handle it. Now isn't the time for you to get involved. He needs to hear it from me." Things were different now. I wasn't the same fool he could deceive with a few sweet words and a flash of a diamond. I was wide awake. I walked out of the study and through the grand foyer of our home. As I approached the main door, I saw them through the sidelights. Leo standing on our manicured driveway, looking for all the world like a contrite romantic hero. He wore a perfectly tailored slate gray suit, his hair artfully tousled. In one hand he held a massive bouquet of red roses. In the other, a velvet ring box was open, revealing a diamond that was indeed obscenely large. It was a performance and he was the leading man. And just a few steps behind him, hovering like a pale, delicate shadow, was Isabella. She was dressed in a simple white sundress, her hands clasped demurely in front of her, the picture of fragile innocence. For a second it was déjà vu. The handsome, persistent suitor, the pitiful, misunderstood other woman. It was a scene from my past life, a dynamic I had tolerated for far too long. I pushed the heavy door open. The sunlight was bright, and Leo's face immediately lit up with a practiced, tender smile. It was the same smile he'd used to placate me 1,000 times before. "Maya, sweetheart," he began, his voice a low, soothing caress. He walked towards me, extending the roses. "Don't be mad anymore." The audacity was breathtaking. He held out the ring, his expression one of gentle reproach. "Maya, you're being so difficult. Didn't I tell you to wait for me to come back? Why did you have to blow things out of proportion?" He sighed as if dealing with a temperamental child. "I know you were mad I left you, but it's over now. And I already explained. Isabella's family had some issues. He was feeling down. I was just comforting her." The moment the words left his mouth, Auntie Lena, who had been watching from the doorway, exploded. "Comforting someone?" she shrieked, marching forward and planting her hands on her hips. "Since when does comfort mean making out? Or did you comfort her all the way to bed too?" Leo's face darkened, a flash of genuine anger in his eyes. But because I was standing there, he held his tongue, his jaw tightening. His disgusting excuses only made me sneer internally. He truly thought I was still that gullible girl, that my love for him was a switch he could flip on and off at will. I turned my face away from him, not even deigning to look at the ring. "I'm not mad, Leo. I'm actually grateful you ran away. It helped me see the real you." I met his gaze, my own cold and flat. "But if you already ran once, why come back now? Can't let go of the benefits that come from my family? What do you call this?" Auntie Lena jumped in, mocking him. "He probably just can't live without all that money." Leo clenched his fists, the velvet of the ring box crumpling in his grip. "Maya, do you have to be this harsh?" It was then that Isabella stepped forward. She moved with a delicate grace, frowning as she looked at me, her eyes instantly welling with tears. She was a master of her craft. "Maya, I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It's all my fault. I never meant to ruin your wedding." She sniffled, a delicate, pitiful sound. "Leo really cares about you. Even after getting yelled at and hit by your parents, he never once blamed you. He still wants to marry you." She cried so delicately, a weepy damsel in distress straight out of a bad movie. That day I was just overwhelmed by my family's problems. I lost control for a moment, that's all. Auntie Lena's face was a thundercloud. "You shameless home wrecker," she spat. "How dare you speak to our miss like that? Only a filthy Person like you would want a sleaze bag like him. A perfect match. Two disgusting people just made for each other. Leo couldn't stand it. Seeing his white moonlight insulted by the help was too much for his pride. His composure shattered. He lunged forward, his foot coming off the ground as if to charge at Auntie Lena. I moved faster, stepping squarely between them. Whatever Auntie Lena says, I declared, my voice ringing with authority, I agree with. Was any of it wrong? Emboldened, Auntie Lena grabbed a broom that was leaning against the porch rail. Let me beat these filthy lovebirds out of here, she yelled, brandishing it like a spear. Seeing the broom coming, Leo's instincts took over. He didn't protect himself. He turned and pulled Isabella into his arms, shielding her with his own body. The broom connected with a solid thwack against his shoulder. His fury exploded. He spun around, his eyes blazing as he looked at me, all pretense of tenderness gone. Maya, don't push it, he snarled. One day when you come crawling back to beg me, I won't forgive you. I laughed, a cold, sharp sound that held no humor. You're trash, Leo. If you've got mental problems, go get them treated. He stared at me, his chest heaving, the perfect proposal lie in ruins at his feet. He grabbed Isabella's hand, his grip undoubtedly too tight, and stalked back to his car without another word, leaving the roses and the ridiculous ring discarded on our driveway. I watched them go, the cold knot in my chest tightening. This was only the beginning. He still thought he could win. He was so sure of himself, so convinced of his own charm and my undying devotion. He had no idea that the woman he was dealing with now was not his childhood sweetheart, but a ghost he himself had created. A ghost who had come back for vengeance, and who would not rest until his world was as ash around him. In the weeks that followed, Leo's parents came by our house several times, their faces etched with a mixture of shame and desperation. My parents, now fully aware of the monstrous truth, refused to see them. The Sterling-Vance alliance was officially and publicly dead. I knew Leo hadn't given up. His arrogance was a bottomless well. He still believed I was hopelessly in love with him, that my anger was just a temporary storm he could weather. He was so sure of himself, so convinced he knew me. After all, I had followed him around since we were children, easy to please and even easier to manipulate. He assumed that no matter how outrageously he behaved, he could always come back, lower his head a little, sweet-talk me, and I'd melt just like before. That was his fatal flaw. He was fighting the ghost of the old Maya, while the new one was systematically dismantling his future. I had someone following him. The reports were as nauseating as they were predictable. He and Isabella were spending every night together, playing house in a luxury apartment his parents were still funding. My parents were livid. They'd watched him grow up, and even they had misjudged the depth of his duplicity. When Mr. and Mrs. Vance showed up at our house for what would be the final time, my parents didn't mince words. My father threw a stack of the surveillance photos onto the marble table in our foyer. The images were clear. Leo and Isabella hand-in-hand shopping, kissing in cafes, entering his apartment building together late at night. After that, the Vances didn't dare come plead on Leo's behalf again. The engagement was officially, irrevocably over. But the Vances were in urgent need of funding. With the Sterling pipeline severed, they had no choice but to look elsewhere. I knew exactly where Leo would turn. In our previous life, one of his first major coups had been a partnership with the Rinshu Corporation, a rising tech giant from Y-City. I was certain that in this life, desperate and scrambling, he'd do whatever it took to get on board that ship. I discovered that Rinshu was hosting a new product launch event, which was in reality a high-stakes business cocktail party. It was the perfect hunting ground for a man like Leo. And it was the perfect place for me to lay a trap. I arrived at the event looking nothing like a jilted, heartbroken woman. I wore a dress of deep emerald green, a color that spoke of confidence and power, not vulnerability. My hair was sleek, my makeup flawless. I looked like I belonged. And no surprise I saw him there. Leo in his element, working the room with a charming smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. And clinging to his arm, a vision in pale pink, was the ever-fragile Isabella. They were making their way toward a group of young, influential-looking men in the corner. My target was among them. Rinshu Yu, the sole heir to the Rinshu Corporation. We had attended the same university, though we moved in different circles. We weren't close, but we were familiar. And compared to a total stranger like Leo, I was far more trustworthy. I moved quickly, a graceful green-clad shark gliding through the crowd. I reached the group just as Leo was beginning his pitch. And we believe the Vance Group's infrastructure can seamlessly integrate with your new platform, Leo was saying, his voice full of polished confidence. I squeezed myself smoothly between Rinshu and Leo, linking my arm through Rinshu's with a familiarity I didn't truly possess. Rinshu. What a surprise seeing you here. I said, my voice bright and cheerful. Of course I'd known he would be here. His mother's family was a major investor. Leo looked stunned, his sentence trailing off. You two know each other? He asked, his smile strained. I tilted my head and pretended to just notice him. Oh, isn't this my cheating ex-fiancé? I said, my tone casual as if commenting on the weather. I glanced at Isabella. Here with his mistress. I paused, tapping my chin. Wait, actually, I guess I can't call her that anymore. He never succeeded in marrying me after all. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Rinshu's expression shift. The polite interest he'd been showing Leo evaporated, replaced by a cool, assessing look. Reputation was everything in these circles, and I had just publicly branded Leo as untrustworthy and dishonorable. Leo's jaw tightened. I could see the muscles working. He was clearly furious, but he was trapped in a room full of potential investors. Maya, he said through gritted teeth, trying to regain control. This is a business event. Can we keep our personal matters private? Oh, but this is business, Leo, I replied sweetly. You see, this guy has been chasing me around during the day, begging me to marry him again. And at night, I said, looking pointedly at Isabella. He's sleeping with someone else. If you're going to work with him, Rinshu, you should be careful. His loyalties seemed to be flexible. That was the killing blow. Rinshu's face closed off completely. He gave Leo a curt, dismissive nod. I see. Thank you for the information, Maya. He then turned to the other young men in his group. Gentlemen, shall we? And just like that, he walked away, taking Leo's most promising business opportunity with him. Leo's fists were clenched so tightly his knuckles were white. If we hadn't been in public, I honestly wondered if he would have hit me. Emma, Maya, he growled, catching himself. He was so angry he was slipping. You're really going to go against me like this? Already told you. I only see Isabella as a sister. Why won't you believe me? His voice took on a wounded tone. You've really disappointed me. After everything I've done to win you back, it's still not enough. You're too willful. No one but me would put up with that. The sheer, unadulterated audacity was almost impressive. He was trying to gaslight me in the middle of a cocktail party. Seeing that his anger wasn't working, he switched tactics again. His shoulders slumped, and he looked at me with those deep, soulful eyes that had once made my heart flutter. Now they just made my skin crawl. Maya, he said, his voice softening to a whisper. What will it take for you to forgive me? I admit I was wrong to leave you that day, but it was a life-or-death situation. I had no choice. He took a step closer. We grew up together. Don't you know how I feel about you? His voice was a low, intimate caress. He was doing it on purpose, trying to use the crowd, putting on a public performance to pressure me into reconciling. A few people nearby were beginning to glance over, curious. But I wasn't the same fool. I looked back at him with an equally sorrowful expression. Is this your idea of love, Leo? Betraying me over and over again. I raised my voice just enough for the onlookers to hear. When she didn't want you, you came crawling back to me. Do you think I'm your trash bin? I let my gaze flicker to Isabella, who was trying to look invisible. You say she's like a sister to you, but who cuddles their own sister like that? Hooking up in a hotel every night? Don't think I don't know. You two have already slept together. A soft gasp came from a woman standing nearby. I pressed my advantage, my voice dripping with scorn. A life-or-death emergency, please. You just couldn't wait to drag her off to make a baby. If you have the guts to do it, then own up to it. You slept with someone else. You betrayed me. And you still have the nerve to ask my family to do business with yours to help you out? There's a limit to shamelessness. With that, I turned to walk away, the picture of wounded dignity. But Leo grabbed my arm, his grip firm. His face was a mask of sorrow. Maya, I really love you. What will it take for you to forgive me? I really do love you, God. He was laughable. His shamelessness knew no bounds. I looked around, my eyes landing on a towering champagne fountain, its cascading liquid catching the light. I pointed to it. Drink it all, I said flatly. Every drop. Not a single spill. If it doesn't kill you from alcohol poisoning, it'll at least make you explode. Leo froze, stunned that I'd suggest something so harsh, so publicly cruel. Isabella, ever the martyr, stepped forward, her voice a pitiful waver. If that's what it takes to calm Miss Sterling down, then I'll do it. She reached for a champagne flute. Of course, Leo couldn't bear to see her humiliated. He shot me a look of pure, unadulterated hatred and dragged her away, his tail firmly between his legs. I watched them go, a small, cold smile playing on my lips. Well, since they were already here, I hadn't wasted the opportunity. But my work for the night wasn't done. I still had to find Rinshu. A new alliance was waiting to be forged, and this time I would be the one holding the pen. The months that followed were a satisfying blur of strategic moves and quiet observation. With the Rinshu deal dead in the water, Leo was left scrambling for funding, a desperate man trying to plug a dozen leaks in a sinking ship. His constant, smothering attempts to win me back dwindled to nothing, for which I was profoundly grateful. He simply didn't have the time. His precious white moonlight, Isabella, however, became a source of perverse entertainment. In the beginning, she'd shown up at our gate a few times, playing the heartbroken penitent, crying about how hard things were for Leo and how could I be so heartless. But once Leo, through some Herculean effort and what I suspected were ruinous loan terms, managed to secure a temporary line of credit, her tune changed dramatically. Her sob stories morphed into shameless bragging. She'd coincidentally run into my friends, detailing the new handbag Leo had bought her, the huge diamond bracelet she'd received just yesterday. If I hadn't known the truth about their precarious finances, I might have thought she was funding it all with her own body. I'd started having occasional lunches with Rinshu. Our relationship was strictly platonic, built on a foundation of mutual business interest, and I suspected his fascination with the drama that seemed to follow me. He was sharp, cynical, and had a dry sense of humor that I appreciated. I told him about Isabella's latest boasts over coffee one afternoon. He listened, sipping his espresso, a faint smile on his lips. If you didn't know better, I mused, you'd think she was being paid for services rendered. Rinshu laughed, a short, genuine sound. Isn't that basically just selling yourself? He said, setting his cup down. Even if it's to one person, it's still selling. I gave him a big thumbs up. You're absolutely right. 6 months passed. Thanks to my rebirth and the insider knowledge it afforded, my family had already formalized a powerhouse partnership with Rinshu Corporation. What others saw as emerging trends, I knew as established fact from my past life. To me, the future was just memory. It was an unfair advantage, and I wielded it without a shred of guilt. Leo, I knew, was aware of our success. It must have been a special kind of hell for him, watching the future he felt entitled to unfold in my hands instead of his. The declining assets and mounting liabilities of the Vance Group left him overextended and exhausted. He was working twice as hard as in our previous life, desperately juggling everything just to keep his family's company from imploding. The strain was starting to show in the paparazzi photos. He looked thinner, harder, the easy charm replaced by a permanent tension. On Qixi, the Chinese Valentine's Day, I decided to set the final stage. I dressed with careful intention, an outfit that was both alluring and vulnerable. I went to a trendy, loud bar in a part of the city I wouldn't normally frequent. The music was throbbing, the crowd dense. I ordered a drink, barely touched it, and made a show of looking slightly lost and overwhelmed. It didn't take long. I started to feel a familiar, artificial dizziness, a heavy lethargy that couldn't have come from a single sip of champagne. The drink had been tampered with, just as I'd hoped. Clutching my small bag, I stumbled out of the bar and into the cool night air, making sure my exit was noticeable. I turned down a narrow, poorly lit alley, a shortcut to where my car was supposedly parked. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw 2 men detach themselves from the shadows and follow me. Perfect. I quickened my pace, feigning panic, and turned another corner, deliberately leading us into a dead end. I turned to face them, my back against the cold brick wall, playing the terrified victim. One of them sneered, his voice dripping with lust. Well, aren't we lucky tonight? That face and body. This is going to be good. The other one reached for me eagerly. You're trembling already, huh? Just wait. Soon you'll be begging for more. I laughed coldly inside. This was so clearly Leo's tactic. A classic, pathetic move. Let someone else violate me, then he would swoop in, acting the hero, saving me. He'd tell me it didn't matter, that he didn't blame me for what happened, and then magnanimously offer to take me back anyway. He thought it would shatter my newfound independence, make me reliant on him again. It was beyond disgusting. Right on cue, a loud roar echoed through the alley. Let her go. It was Leo's voice. He strode forward, a righteous savior emerging from the darkness, his expression a perfect blend of anger and concern. Maya, don't be afraid, he said, his voice projecting confidence. I'm here. I won't let them hurt you. The performance was so overdone it was laughable. Did he really think this pathetic script could fool me? He looked at the two thugs. Get out of here before I call the police. The men, as per their instructions, hesitated, giving him just enough time to play the hero. I straightened up. All traces of fear left my body. I looked directly at Leo, my voice flat with revulsion. Leo, I said. You disgust me. His heroic facade faltered for a second, confusion clouding his features. Without another word of explanation, I acted. I pulled a small canister from my bag. Not just pepper spray but a high-potency formula used by security professionals. I blasted it directly into the faces of the two thugs. They howled, clawing at their eyes. Then I turned to Leo. He was staring, stunned. Maya, what are you? I didn't let him finish. I gave him a particularly generous dose, aiming straight for his eyes. He screamed, a raw sound of shock and pain, stumbling backward. While they were all blinded and disoriented, I took out my second item, a compact high-voltage stun baton. I jabbed it into the first thug's side. He convulsed and dropped to the ground. I did the same to the second. Then I stood over Leo, who was on his knees, rubbing frantically at his eyes. You think I planned this? He choked out, his voice strangled. I kicked him hard in the ribs. If you're so innocent, I snarled, swear on Isabella's life that this wasn't your doing. He called after me, his voice breaking. Maya, I love you. You can't leave me. I kicked him again, this time in the leg. If you're sick, go get help. Don't lose your mind in front of me. I left them there in the alley, three writhing, pathetic figures in the dark. My heart was pounding, but not with fear. With triumph. Because I refused to let the incident go. And because I'd quietly pressured and coaxed those two thugs behind the scenes with promises of lesser sentences and financial incentives, they finally grew a conscience. They confessed everything to the police. They admitted that Leo Vance had been the one who hired them. I refused to settle. I insisted on pressing charges. Even when a haggard Robert and Eleanor Vance came to our house to beg, their pride completely shattered, I didn't waver. Compared to what my family had suffered in the last life, a criminal charge was a mere slap on the wrist. I had no sympathy left for any of them. What I didn't expect was the final, desperate act. Isabella showed up at my door. Judging by the pinched, reluctant look on her face, she'd been pushed into this by the Vances, a last-ditch effort to appeal to my non-existent softer side. The chapter was almost closed. The sting of the scorpion had been delivered. And it was fatal. Isabella stood on my doorstep, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else in the world. The first thing out of her mouth was a masterpiece of manipulation, delivered with a tremor that was probably only half-faked. Miss Sterling, what more do you want? She began, her voice a pitiful waver. You know how much Leo cares about you. He still has the engagement ring he meant to give you. He's been running himself ragged trying to raise money, all just to give you a better life and make up for what he did. Why do you insist on making things so hard for him? I almost laughed out loud. The sheer twisted logic was astounding. She was framing me as the unreasonable one, the obstacle to their happiness. He cares about me? I repeated, my tone flat. If he really cared, would he have run out of our wedding for you? You say he's working so hard to give me a better life? The only reason his family's company didn't collapse years ago is because my family helped prop them up. I took a step forward and she flinched. My business is doing just fine. I don't need anything from him. As for the ring you seem so obsessed with, I added, my lip curling, what kind of woman would still want anything from a man as cold and heartless as Leo? I waved a dismissive hand. Just go. You haven't done anything directly to hurt me and I don't want to target you. But if you keep showing up in front of me like this, don't blame me for what happens next. But instead of leaving, she surprised me. She stepped forward and grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. Miss Sterling, I know this is all my fault. Everyone says I destroyed your relationship. If you're willing to forgive Leo and take him back, I'll leave. I'll go far, far away and I'll never come back. She sounded so resolute, so self-sacrificing. I started to wonder just how much pressure the Vances were putting on her. Their empire was crumbling and she was their last flimsy bargaining chip. When I didn't answer, her act escalated. She burst into tears, great, heaving sobs. Please, I'm begging you. I'll kneel if that's what it takes. Just as she began to sink to her knees in a dramatic, melodramatic gesture, Leo's car screeched to a halt at the curb. He must have been waiting nearby. He rushed out and pulled her up, holding her protectively. Isabella, no, he murmured, stroking her hair. He then looked at me, his eyes full of confusion and anger. Maya, you're being so cruel. You weren't like this before. You always listened to me. I let out a scornful laugh that echoed in the quiet street. You call this cruel? I used to be stupid, that's all. But I'm wide awake now. Leo stared at me, his gaze intense, searching my face as if seeing me for the first time. A strange, suspicious look dawned in his eyes. The pieces were finally starting to click into place for him. My coldness, my strategic dismantling of his life, my complete lack of the vulnerability he'd always taken for granted. Maya, he said, his voice low and hesitant. Did you come back too? My blood ran cold for a second, but I didn't let it show. Of course, I couldn't admit it. Not yet. I looked him up and down, then gave him a look of pure, unadulterated contempt. If something's wrong with your brain, Leo, go get it treated. Don't think pretending to be insane will make me drop the charges. He stared at me in silence for a long, heavy moment, the truth hanging unspoken between us. Then, without another word, he turned and led a sobbing Isabella away, holding her as if she were the only solid thing left in his collapsing world. The Vances, in a final display of their dwindling influence, hired a top-tier lawyer for Leo. Since I hadn't been physically harmed, the court gave him a lighter sentence. He walked away with probation and a hefty fine, a slap on the wrist. But I didn't care. By that point, the Vance Group had run out of time and options. The constant bleed of capital, the lost partnerships, the scandal, it was a death by 1,000 cuts. They finally, officially declared bankruptcy. I never resorted to truly underhanded, illegal tactics to destroy them. I left Robert and Eleanor with a shred of dignity, a small apartment and enough to live on. After all, the one who had wronged me was Leo, not his parents. I wanted him to see with his own eyes that in his previous life, his so-called success was only possible because of my family. Without us, he was nothing. After the bankruptcy, stripped of his wealth and status, Leo still reached out to me a few times. His calls were desperate, pathetic. Maya, he slurred once, sounding drunk. Can we stop fighting? I've always had you in my heart. Let's get married. I know you love me more than anyone. I swear I'll be good to you. I'll never leave you again. Another time, his voice was wistful, haunting. Maya, do you know? I had a dream. I dreamed we got married. We were so in love, so happy. Everyone envied us. He actually had the nerve to talk about happiness. The word was a spark thrown on a lifetime of kindling. Since the moment I was reborn, I had done everything in my power to restrain my rage, to be strategic, cold, and calculating. But now, hearing him romanticize the prison he had built for me, I couldn't hold it in any longer. Your so-called happiness, I hissed into the phone, my voice trembling with a decade of pent-up fury, involved sabotaging my brakes and letting me die in a crash. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. A brief, stunned silence. Then something shifted. I could feel it through the line. The last puzzle piece slid into place for him. He gave a low, bitter laugh. So, he said, his voice suddenly clear and devoid of pretense. You really were reborn too. He paused. Maya, do you hate me that much? The dam broke. Do you think a half-hearted sorry makes up for any of this? I screamed, all composure gone. Isabella died. And instead of blaming the people truly responsible, you turned around and blamed my entire family. You destroyed us, and you think I shouldn't hate you? I was shaking, tears of rage streaming down my face. I trusted you. I watched my family suffer. I remember my car rolling down the mountain, the pain of my body being crushed, the glass. That pain, I'll never forget it. Maybe it was the raw, unvarnished force of my outburst that finally made him falter. He was silent for a long time. I'm sorry, Maya, he whispered, and for the first time it sounded almost real. I thought. I cut him off coldly. You thought that killing me would prove your love for Isabella. You're nothing but a selfish coward. Even now, all you're mourning is how much I once gave you. It's never been about love, just about what you lost. I wiped my face, letting out a shuddering breath. The anger had passed, leaving behind a cold, empty calm. Get lost, Leo. I have nothing left to say to you. I paused, a final, cruel idea forming. But since we've known each other for so many years, I'll do you one final favor. I'll help you find Isabella. Think of it as a parting gift. He didn't say anything. Then suddenly I heard a sharp crack, the sound of him slapping himself hard across the face. I'm sorry, Maya, he repeated, his voice thick. If Isabella wants to leave, let her go. The one I love is you. I couldn't help but laugh again, the sound hollow. Even at rock bottom he was still trying to manipulate me. Leo, I said, my voice flat and final. Isabella is pregnant. The silence on the other end was absolute. I could practically hear the gears grinding in his head. First surprise, then a flicker of joy, then confusion, and finally dawning, ugly suspicion. Where is she? He demanded, his voice suddenly sharp and urgent. Maya, tell me where she is. I gave a small, cold smile he couldn't see. She didn't just leave you when times got tough, Leo. She's got a surprise waiting for you too. I hung up. The cracks in his perfect white moonlight were about to become a chasm, and I was going to enjoy watching him fall into it. 2 nights later the heavens opened. Rain sheeted down, lashing against my windows, mimicking that fateful night from another life. The perfect backdrop for the final act. I sent a single anonymous text to Leo with an address. A cheap motel on the outskirts of the city. To get there he'd have to drive the same winding, treacherous mountain road where my life had ended. The poetic justice was so sweet it was almost cloying. I waited, perched in the living room of a secluded mountain villa my family owned, overlooking that very road. The lights of the city were a distant, blurred tapestry through the rain-streaked glass. I had a direct line to the private investigator I had on Isabella. Once I knew Leo was enraged and on his way, I sent him the video. It was a short, damning clip. There was Isabella, not looking fragile or pitiful at all. She was curled up on a motel bed, laughing, nestled in the arms of a man I'd paid handsomely to play his part. They were looking at a baby name book on his phone, their heads close together. I called Leo. He picked up on the first ring, his breathing ragged. So Leo, I said, my voice calm over the sound of his car's engine and the pounding rain. Is the money Isabella used to rent that room and buy those clothes yours? That means you're basically the one supporting her and her new boy toy, right? I paused, letting the image sink in. Maybe you should go catch up with her and ask why she betrayed you. Ask her why she never loved you. I could hear his breakdown through the phone. It wasn't a sob but a raw, guttural sound of utter devastation. Isabella. Isabella, he chanted like a mantra of madness. He was doing great, of course. I'd promised her a one-way ticket out of the country and enough money to start over, far from the wreckage of the Van Cess, on the condition she play her part in this final scene. She had agreed without hesitation. Her love for Leo had always been conditional on his wealth and status. Now that it was gone, so was she. But I wasn't just after revenge. I wanted him utterly broken, his soul crushed before his body followed. A short while later my phone rang. It was Leo. His voice was strangely calm, detached. Maya, he said. The brakes, they're really not working. I know, I replied, my own voice equally calm. But if you don't get there within the hour, Isabella will be leaving the country. Her flight leaves at midnight. He laughed then, a dry, brittle sound like dead leaves rustling. Maya, how did we get here? We were so close when we were kids. I thought we'd grow up and stay together forever. I don't understand. Why did I lose to you? I looked down at the snaking ribbon of the mountain road, barely visible in the storm. Because you were too greedy, Leo. You wanted success, fame, and a beautiful woman on your arm. But I only wanted you dead. On the other end of the line, I heard him cry out, a sharp, agonized sound that was swallowed by the roar of the storm and the screech of tires. Maya, if I hadn't left you to chase Isabella that day, would you have forgiven me? No, I answered without a moment's hesitation. The truth was a clean, sharp blade. You spent a lifetime obsessed with her. Even if we went back to the beginning, you wouldn't give her up. And even if by some miracle you did, I still wouldn't forgive you. You are a murderer, Leo. In both lives. I could hear the strain in his voice, the struggle to control the car. The melatonin I'd had slipped into his drink earlier. A habit he'd developed in our last life to sleep. A habit I knew he still had, would be taking effect now. Drowsiness would be clouding his reflexes, weighing down his eyelids. Too bad for you, I added, my voice cold as the grave. She never loved you. She treated you like a fool. I took a final cruel pleasure in my last words. Oh, and I forgot to tell you. Next, I'm going after your parents. But if you want me to spare them, well, that depends on your performance tonight. Better hurry. I'm watching you from the top of the mountain. Let's see just how deep your so-called love really runs. The phone line went silent for a moment, filled only with the sound of the storm and a desperate, labored breathing. I knew he wouldn't back out. His obsession was his compass, and it was pointing straight to hell. The last thing I heard from him was his voice, hoarse and weak, stripped of all pride and pretense. I'm sorry, Maya. I was wrong. For the sake of my parents, they really do like you. Please, don't make things hard for them. I replied with icy finality. We'll see how you perform. Then it came. A loud, metallic crash that was both familiar and foreign, followed by a profound, echoing silence. I looked down the mountain and saw the pinprick of his headlights swerve violently, then vanish, swallowed by the darkness. So Leo had at least a shred of self-awareness left. He knew he'd lost. He had no way out. How pathetic. In the end, he still couldn't catch up to the woman he'd spent his life chasing. His precious white moonlight was nothing but a reflection in a dirty puddle, and he had drowned trying to grasp it. The storm passed as all storms do. The sky gradually cleared, revealing a bruised, dawn-streaked canvas of purples and pinks. Standing on the balcony of the villa, I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. The air smelled of wet earth, pine, and something else, something I hadn't truly breathed in 2 lifetimes. Freedom. It was over. Everything Leo had taken from me in my last life. My family, my future, my very breath, I had taken back in this one. Justice, clarity, peace. They were mine again. He had lived an obsession, blinded by his own selfishness, thinking he could have it all. Glory, love, and someone to blame for his regrets. In the end, he lost everything. And I had watched it all fall piece by piece without lifting a single finger to stop it. Not because I was cruel, but because he had meticulously laid the path to his own destruction. I was merely the guide. The news of his death was reported as a tragic accident on a slick mountain road. A young man from a fallen family, his life cut short. There was a small, quiet funeral. I did not attend. My parents went for the sake of the decades they had known his parents. They reported that Robert Vance's mental state had declined rapidly, and Eleanor had spiraled into a catatonic silence, a hollowed-out shell of the society matron she once was. I didn't offer them a hand. I didn't send condolences or financial aid. After all, in my last life, when my father was dragged down and ruined by their son, when I died in a ditch, none of them had ever thought to save us. They had reaped the benefits of Leo's success. They could share the burden of his failure. The scales were balanced. As for Isabella, I didn't care where she ended up. The private investigator confirmed she boarded her flight, her belly slightly rounded, a ticket to a new life in her hand. That chapter was closed. She was a symptom of Leo's sickness, not the cause. The cause was his own rotten heart. My family was safe. My father's business, now unshackled from the Vances and bolstered by the alliance with Renshu Corporation, was thriving, expanding into territories he'd only ever dreamed of. My mother could finally sleep through the night without the gnawing fear of a phone call bringing catastrophic news. The shadows that had haunted our home were gone. Me. I was no longer the naive girl chasing after someone else's love, molding myself to fit a man's idea of perfection. The part of me that had loved Leo had been burned away in the crash, and the woman who emerged from the ashes was harder, sharper, and entirely her own. Renshu, you found me on the balcony later that morning. He didn't say anything about Leo. He simply leaned against the railing next to me, watching the sun burn away the last of the clouds. After a long, comfortable silence, he asked, "Do you regret any of it?" I thought about the question. I thought of the little girl who had followed Leo around, of the bride who had stood trembling at the altar, of the wife who had believed in a happily ever after. I thought of the betrayal, the cold plot for revenge, the terrifying fall down a mountain. I turned to him, the morning sun warm on my face. "No," I said, and the word was the truest I had ever spoken. "I don't regret a thing. Because the past burned me to ashes, and from it I learned to rise. In this life I would love smarter if I chose to love at all. I would live freer, unbounded by anyone's expectations. I would protect what mattered most with a ferocity born of knowing what it meant to lose it." Renshu nodded, a quiet understanding passing between us. It wasn't a promise of a future together, but an acknowledgement of the people we were now, shaped by our pasts but not defined by them. I turned my back on the edge of the balcony, on the view of the mountain that had been both my end and my beginning. A new future awaited, uncharted and full of light. And this time, for the first time in both my lives, it was mine alone to choose. I walked towards it, not with the hesitant steps of a follower, but with the confident stride of a woman who had reclaimed her own soul. The air had never tasted so sweet. The end.
George, I've got good news and bad news. Which do you want to hear first? I put down my paintbrush and looked at my friend Frank. He stood at the studio door with a mysterious air, his face a mix of nervousness and excitement. Let's start with the bad news. After all, I've gotten used to it these past 3 years. Your painting, Eternity, just sold for a sky-high price. Over $6 million. I frowned. How is that bad news? Frank chuckled. Because it's actually part of the good news. The bad news is, buddy, you might need to see a psychiatrist. What do you mean? A woman who looks exactly like Mary showed up at your art exhibition. I almost thought I was seeing a ghost. The paintbrush slipped from my hand and fell to the floor, splattering paint across the unfinished canvas. Mary, my late wife, died 3 years ago after accidentally falling off a cliff. I watched with my own eyes as her body was pulled from the water. In that moment, my world completely collapsed. Stop joking around, Frank. Why would I lie to you? She even left this. Frank handed me a note, with an address and a time written on it. My hand trembled slightly. The handwriting was exactly the same as Mary's. That night, I waited until midnight at the designated cafe. Just as I was about to leave, a familiar figure appeared at the door. Mary? No, it couldn't be her. But every gesture of that woman, from the tips of her hair to her fingertips, was a shadow of Mary. George, it's been a long time. She sat across from me, and the familiar voice nearly made my heart stop. Who are you? I struggled to remain calm. I'm Mary, your wife. She smiled and reached out her hand. There was a scar on her palm, the mark Mary got when she accidentally cut herself on glass at 15. Impossible. Mary is already dead. She laughed softly. That was just an accident. I fell off the cliff and was saved by a reclusive old doctor. I lost my memory from the injuries and only recently remembered everything. As she spoke, tears began to fall with an expression I knew all too well, the look Mary wore whenever she felt wronged. I know it's hard to believe, but I really am Mary. I couldn't believe my eyes. The shade of lipstick Mary loved most, the faint little mole beneath her left ear, the unconscious habit of rubbing her ring while speaking. Everything was so familiar. Are you really Mary? She nodded and took a small box out of her bag. This is the proof. Inside the box was the first piece of jewelry Mary ever designed. A sapphire ring, the only one of its kind, never mass-produced. I brought it with me that day because I wanted to surprise you. I suddenly stood up and pulled her into my arms. 3 years of longing surged over me like a tide. I held her tightly, afraid that if I let go, she would disappear again. On the way home, she told me about her experiences over the past 3 years. She was rescued by an old doctor in the mountains, lost her memory due to a severe head injury, and lived in a remote mountain village for more than 2 years. It wasn't until she happened to see a poster for my art exhibition that her memory gradually returned. The next day, I took her to see Frank. Oh my God, it really is you, Mary. Frank stared in astonishment, eyes wide. Frank, it's been a long time. She greeted him with a smile, exactly as I remembered. Frank pulled me aside and whispered, Man, this is unbelievable, but I really believe it's her. Who else but Mary could call me by my childhood nickname so accurately? That was something only the two of you knew. A week later, Mary officially returned. We held a small welcome party for her. Her mother was so overwhelmed that she fainted, and when she woke up, she clung to her daughter and refused to let go. But that night, I noticed the first sign that something was off. Mary never ate mangoes because she was severely allergic. Yet the returned Mary absent-mindedly tasted a mango dessert and was perfectly fine. "Aren't you allergic to mangoes?" I asked. She paused for a moment, then quickly laughed and said, "Oh, that old Chinese doctor cured my allergy. He's really amazing." I nodded, but in my heart, I marked the first question mark. Is this really my wife? A month passed quickly, and Mary blended perfectly into our lives. She knew the location of every item in the house, remembered our shared memories, and could even accurately name friends we hadn't contacted in years. But those subtle feelings of discord kept growing. For example, the real Mary liked to listen to classical music, especially Debussy, while designing jewelry. But she would always unconsciously hum along to pop songs. Mary always habitually used her left hand to hold chopsticks, even though she knew it was wrong. She just couldn't change. But she was a standard right-handed user. The most obvious difference appeared that night when I accidentally caught her smoking in the bedroom. The real Mary hated the smell of smoke. Even when I came home from social events with a faint scent of cigarettes, she would frown. "When did you start smoking?" I stood at the doorway, my voice soft. She was clearly startled, hastily snuffing out the cigarette. This is a herbal cigarette for treating insomnia, prescribed by an old Chinese doctor." I nodded, not pressing further, but the doubts in my heart only grew deeper. The next day, I went to find Frank. "Help me check if, in the past 3 years, plastic surgery technology has advanced enough to achieve this level." Frank's eyes widened. "You mean, she's not Mary?" "I'm not sure, but there are always some things that don't add up." 2 days later, Frank brought news. High-end plastic surgery can make faces look similar, but it can't replicate the exact placement of scars or moles. And there's a limit to how well someone can imitate a voice. What if it was a twin? Frank shook his head. "Mary is an only child. We all know that." I decided not to show my feelings for now and to keep observing. A week later, Mary's mother came to my house with astonishing news. "George, Mary is going to have a baby," my mother-in-law told me excitedly. I stood there stunned. Before we got married, Mary had been diagnosed with uterine hypoplasia. The doctor had made it clear she could never get pregnant. This was our shared secret. Not even my mother-in-law knew. How do you know that?" I managed to ask. "Mary told me this morning. She said she already had a checkup. It's been 2 months. My mother-in-law happily grabbed my hand. "It's a blessing from above. Mary survived death, and now she can bring us new life." My heart sank to the bottom. This absolutely could not be Mary. That night, I dug out the hospital's diagnosis certificate in my study, which clearly stated the condition of Mary's uterus. But when I wanted to talk to Mary about it, I found her in the bedroom, excitedly discussing the decoration of the nursery with my mother-in-law. "Mary, could you come here for a moment?" I called her calmly. She followed me into the study, still wearing a blissful smile on her face. "Did you forget about this?" I handed her the diagnosis certificate. She took it and glanced at it, her face instantly turning pale. "George, I can explain." "Explain what?" "Explain that you're not Mary at all." Mother-in-law heard the commotion and walked in. "What's going on with you two?" "Mom, take a look at this." I handed her the proof. My mother-in-law read it, then looked at Mary in astonishment. "What's going on?" "Mary, you can't have children." "Of course she can," I sneered, "because she's not Mary at all." My mother-in-law's face changed dramatically. "What nonsense are you talking about?" "I can explain." She hurriedly grabbed my mother-in-law's hand. "That old Chinese doctor not only saved my life, but also cured my uterine problem. It's a miracle, truly." My mother-in-law looked at me, then at her, hesitating. "George, you're being too paranoid." My mother-in-law finally took her daughter's side. "Mary has come back with great difficulty. You should cherish her, not doubt her." "Yes, George, I know this is hard to accept, but miracles do happen." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Haven't we always wanted a child? Now we can finally have our own baby." I looked at her face, identical to Mary's, yet I became more certain in my heart. This woman was not my wife. "All right, I believe you." I smiled, deciding to go along with their story for now. Let's wait together for this miracle to happen. That night, I secretly contacted a private detective. My mother-in-law gladly accepted her daughter's explanation, even suggesting she move in with us to take care of Mary during her pregnancy. Outwardly, I agreed, but inside I grew even more wary. This was no coincidence. There had to be some kind of plot. Mom, haven't you always lived in Haicheng? Won't it be hard to get used to living here? I probed cautiously. For my grandson, I'm willing to endure any inconvenience, my mother-in-law said firmly. I noticed a fleeting unnatural expression on Mary's face. Could the truth be connected to my mother-in-law? On the third day after my mother-in-law moved in, I discovered more suspicious details. For example, the real Mary never drank coffee, but she and my mother-in-law often enjoyed it together. Also, Mary's favorite movie was Roman Holiday, but she claimed to prefer Titanic. The strangest thing is, Mary used to despise her cousin Tom when she was alive, but now he visits frequently and chats and laughs with Mary as if they're old friends. I told Frank about these discoveries. Buddy, things are getting more and more suspicious, Frank frowned. Are you sure you want to keep going like this? Why not just expose her directly? It's not the right time yet. I want to find out what they're really after. The private detective's investigation also made progress. The so-called old Chinese doctor who had saved Mary did not exist at all, and Mary's whereabouts over the past 3 years were completely untraceable. More importantly, the private detective uncovered a shocking fact during the investigation. Mary's cousin Tom was deeply in debt from gambling, and the painting Eternity under my name, worth over $6 million, was his only hope for quick cash. They're after your painting, the private detective asserted, and this fake Mary is likely a professional identity fraudster, hired to win your trust. I took a deep breath and decided to take the initiative. That afternoon, I pretended to go out, but secretly returned home and hid in the study. Sure enough, Mary and her cousin Tom were whispering to each other in the living room. It's taking too long, Tom said irritably. How much longer until he sells the painting? Don't worry, she soothed him. I'm already pregnant, and now he completely believes I'm Mary. In a little while, I'll say I want to move to a better neighborhood for the sake of the baby, and then we'll naturally need to sell the painting to raise money. You're really pregnant? That wasn't part of the plan. It was an accident, but it works to our advantage. George wants a child so badly. Does Annie know the truth? She only knows we're trying to scam money, not the specific plan. But she hates George, thinks he caused her daughter's death, so she's more than happy to help. I clenched my fists. So my mother-in-law had always believed that Mary's accident was somehow my fault. In fact, we did argue over something trivial that day, and Mary stormed out in anger. I didn't try to stop her. But I never imagined it would be the last time I'd see her. You don't actually have feelings for George, do you? Tom suddenly asked. She was silent for a moment. It's just part of the job. Besides, I owe you, and I won't go back on my word. Good then. Don't forget how we're splitting the money once we get it. Their conversation confirmed my suspicions. This was all an elaborate scheme, with my eternity as the target. In the days that followed, I pretended everything was normal while secretly making preparations. I contacted the police, arranged for evidence-gathering equipment, and found the last piece Mary had left before she died, a silver necklace that had never been made public, engraved with an anniversary date only the two of us knew. 2 weeks later, my art exhibition was held as scheduled. As planned, Mary brought up the idea of moving, hinting that I could sell Eternity. I pretended to agree and said I would auction the painting on the last day of the exhibition. This is a surprise I prepared for you, I said on the eve of the exhibition, taking out a delicate box. To celebrate the new life we're about to begin. She opened the box in surprise, and inside was the silver necklace. It's beautiful, thank you. She smiled as she prepared to put it on. Wait, I stopped her. Aren't you going to look at the engraving on the back? She turned the necklace over, and her face suddenly went pale. What's wrong? Don't you like it? I asked, feigning ignorance. No, I really like it. It's just, I'm a bit moved. She forced a smile, but didn't know how to explain that she couldn't recognize the significance of that date. See you tomorrow. Get some good rest, and don't forget to wear this necklace. I kissed her forehead and whispered in her ear, after all, this is your final design. Her body visibly stiffened for a moment, but she kept smiling. Of course, I cherish it very much. Tomorrow, the truth will come to light. On the day of the exhibition, the place was packed with people. My painting, Eternity, was displayed in the most prominent spot, right next to the last batch of jewelry designs Mary had created before her death. Mary held my arm, flawlessly playing the role of my wife as always. She had even gone out of her way to wear Mary's favorite white dress and the silver necklace I had given her last night. My mother-in-law and Tom were there too, The three of them exchanged glances from time to time, clearly waiting for the perfect moment. Frank appeared as planned, pretending to be extremely interested in eternity and asking me about the auction details. The auction will begin promptly at 4 in the afternoon, I replied with a smile. This painting means a great deal to me, and I hope it finds someone who truly appreciates it. Mary immediately chimed in. Yes, although it's hard to part with it, this is a necessary decision for our future. I noticed she glanced at Tom, who gave a barely perceptible nod. At 3:30 in the afternoon, the projector in the center of the exhibition hall lit up. This was the special segment I had arranged. Ladies and gentlemen, I stood in front of eternity. Before the auction begins, I'd like to share a little story about this painting. Mary's photo appeared on the projection screen, a group picture from her last birthday party before she passed away. 3 years ago, my wife Mary died in an accident. I created this painting, Eternity, in her memory. The woman in the painting has her back to the viewer, forever gazing into the distance, symbolizing a longing I can never reach. A soft sigh rippled through the crowd. Mary stood beside me, matching my words with a sorrowful expression. However, a month ago, a miracle happened. I turned to look at Mary. My wife came back. The whole room erupted in astonishment, and many people curiously sized up, Mary. This is my wife, Mary. I took her hand and stepped forward. Back from the dead, it's truly the greatest blessing heaven could have given me. She smiled and nodded to everyone, while my mother-in-law and Tom stood by with smug expressions. However, my tone suddenly shifted. Amidst my joy, a question arose. Is she really Mary? The entire room fell silent. Mary's hand trembled slightly in my palm. So, I did some investigating. The projector switched to a set of comparison photos. On the left was the real Mary. On the right was a photo of her. They look exactly the same, don't they? But I clicked the remote, and the photo was enlarged, the details highlighted. The position of the piercing on the left ear was slightly different, the arch of the eyebrows subtly varied, and the fine lines at the corners of the eyes ran in different directions. These are details that even professional plastic surgery cannot fully replicate. Mary tried to pull her hand away, but I held on tightly. My mother-in-law and Tom also began to grow anxious, glancing toward the exit. More importantly, the real Mary has a feature that cannot be copied. I turned to Mary. The necklace I gave you last night has a date engraved on the back. Can you tell everyone what that date is? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. That was the due date of our first child, the one we lost. I spoke softly, my voice trembling with emotion. Mary designed this necklace to commemorate the baby we never got to meet. The date was our secret, only Mary and I knew. The room fell utterly silent. Mary turned deathly pale, my mother-in-law's eyes widened, and Tom had already started edging toward the door. What surprised me even more, I continued, was that the real Mary could never get pregnant due to an underdeveloped uterus. Yet this, Mary claims she's already 2 months along. I let go of her hand and took a step back. So, who are you really? A flicker of despair flashed in Mary's eyes, but she quickly regained her composure. I am Mary, it's just that old Chinese doctor. The non-existent old Chinese doctor, right? I sneered. Just like the non-existent amnesia, the non-existent miraculous recovery. I turned toward the projection screen. Let's see the truth. The screen played the secretly recorded video of her conversation with Tom, their discussion on how to swindle eternity, clearly audible. This isn't. She tried to explain, but my mother-in-law had already rushed forward. Who are you really? My mother-in-law screamed. You're not my daughter? Auntie, stop pretending, I said calmly. You know she's not Mary. You just wanted to get back at me, didn't you? My mother-in-law's face turned pale. I didn't know she was going to impersonate Mary. Tom just said he needed help to scam some money. Police. Don't move. Several plainclothes officers emerged from the crowd, blocking Tom as he tried to escape. Amid the chaos, Mary took the opportunity to shove me aside and run toward the exit. I chased after her and caught up in the parking lot. Tell me, who are you really? She finally stopped, turned to face me, tears welling in her eyes. My name is Luna. I'm an actress. Tom found me and said if I helped trick you out of a painting, he'd give me $1 million. I needed the money for my sister's medical treatment. Why did they choose me? Why Mary? She shook her head. I don't know. They gave me a lot of information, photos, videos, even your chat logs. I was just following the script. The police arrived and took her away. I stood where I was, gazing at the distant sky, my heart a tumult of emotions. Back in the exhibition hall, the crowd had already dispersed, leaving only Frank and a few police officers. It's all been cleared up, Frank walked over. Tom owed money to loan sharks and was desperate. Your mother-in-law always resented you for not saving Mary, so she helped them plan the whole thing. I walked up to Eternity, gently caressing the back of the woman in the painting. Mary, I can finally give you an answer. The police left with the evidence. Frank patted me on the shoulder. What do you plan to do next? I took a deep breath. Prepare for the final painting. What will it be called? The Pursuit, I said softly. This time, I'll paint her face, not just her back. After the case was solved, my life seemed to return to where it was 3 years ago. Eternity was temporarily held by the court as crucial evidence. Tom and Luna were arrested for fraud, and my mother-in-law was investigated as an accomplice. The prosecution wants you to testify in court, the officer called to inform me. The trial is scheduled for early next month. I agreed, though I was utterly exhausted inside. After exposing the deception, I thought I would feel the thrill of revenge, but what I felt instead was a profound emptiness. Those days spent with Mary that month had allowed me to feel a trace of warmth in life again, even if that warmth was born of lies. Frank often came to see me, worried I might fall into despair once more. I told him not to worry, that I was working on a new piece, The Pursuit. Are you really going to paint Mary's face from the front? Frank asked curiously. For the past 3 years, you've always refused to do that. It's time, I replied. We can't live in the past forever. I moved out of the apartment I had shared with Mary and returned to the old house in the suburbs, the place where the real Mary and I had first made our home. The dust-laden memories in the house brought me both pain and comfort. Mary's studio remained just as she had left it, design sketches scattered across the table, unfinished jewelry drafts pinned to the drawing board. One afternoon, while sorting through Mary's belongings, I discovered an encrypted external hard drive. After several attempts, I finally unlocked it using our wedding anniversary as the password. Inside were backups of Mary's design works, along with some personal photos and videos. One folder in particular caught my attention. Inside a folder named Plan was a series of jewelry design sketches, labeled George's Birthday Special Project. It was then I remembered that, in the months before Mary passed away, she often spoke mysteriously about giving me an unparalleled birthday surprise. Leafing through these design drafts, I couldn't help but be moved to tears. Mary had planned to design a jewelry collection inspired by my paintings over the years, with each piece corresponding to a representative work from my artistic career. The last page was a sketch of a ring, with a dark red stone set in the center, its edges adorned with tiny diamonds, closely resembling the sunrise in my early work, Dawn. This is blood amber? I examined the notes carefully, confirming the name of this rare gemstone. Mary's designs had always been bold, but blood amber is extremely rare in the Chinese market, almost impossible to acquire. How did she obtain such a material? As I continued searching, I found a series of email correspondence screenshots. Mary had actually contacted a gemstone dealer in Myanmar, commissioning the blood amber specifically for this ring. The last email showed that the gem had already been shipped, but the date was exactly 1 week before Mary's death. I immediately called Frank. Help me check if there was a package sent from Myanmar 3 years ago, addressed to Mary. 2 days later, Frank brought news. The package did exist, but since no one signed for it, it was returned. However, according to the shipping records, it was resent a month ago, this time addressed to you. What? I was completely confused. I haven't received any package. Check your old apartment? Frank suggested. Back at my old apartment, the manager told me there was indeed a package, but it had been signed for by Mary. She said it was a surprise for you, so she didn't notify you, the manager explained. This meant Luna had taken the blood amber. I rushed to the detention center and requested to see Luna. Separated by glass, she looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but still wore that face so similar to Mary's. What are you doing here? She asked coldly. A month ago, you signed for a package from Myanmar. There was a blood amber inside. I want to know where it is. She looked surprised. How did you know? Tom asked me to sign for it. He said it was some precious gem. He took it. My heart sank. Tom was deep in gambling debt, A precious blood amber would be a windfall for him. He had probably sold it long ago. That blood amber is very important to me, I said softly. It was the last gift my wife left me. Luna was silent for a moment, then suddenly said, maybe it's not that bad. Tom said the stone has flaws, its value is greatly reduced, and he hasn't found a suitable buyer yet. Hope was rekindled. If Tom hadn't sold the blood amber yet, maybe there was still a chance to get it back. Do you know where he might hide it? Luna hesitated for a moment. He has a safe deposit box in a self-storage facility on the east side of the city. After getting the address, I immediately contacted the officer in charge of the case and explained the situation. Since Tom was involved in a large sum of money, the police quickly approved the search request. Mr. George, we've found the safe deposit box, the officer said over the phone. Inside, we did find the blood amber you described, as well as some other evidence. A few hours later, I retrieved the blood amber at the police station. It was even more beautiful than I had imagined. Within the dark red core, wisps of mist seemed to swirl, shifting strangely under the light. This was the birthday gift Mary had so carefully chosen for me, waiting for 3 years. Back home, I carefully placed the blood amber beside the canvas of the pursuit. The painting was already more than half finished, Mary's face emerging from the blur into clarity, yet it still felt like something was missing. Watching the blood amber glimmer faintly under the light, I suddenly understood how I should complete the painting. The creation of the pursuit entered its final stage. I decided to break convention and incorporate the blood amber into the artwork. This would not only be a portrait, but a hybrid piece that fused painting with the art of jewelry. Are you sure you want to do this? Frank frowned. That blood amber is priceless. That's exactly why, I said firmly. Mary chose it for me. She wanted to inspire an unparalleled masterpiece. I will fulfill her wish. For 2 whole weeks, I worked day and night, neglecting sleep and food. I cut the blood amber into thin slices and inlaid them at the spot of Mary's eyes on the canvas, making her gaze truly come alive. I used a special technique to blend the surrounding paint, creating a harmonious transition with the gemstone. From certain angles, the entire painting seemed to be imbued with life, and Mary's expression would shift depending on where the viewer stood. On the day I finished the piece, Frank brought news. Luna had been sentenced to 3 years in prison, but due to her good attitude in confessing, she might serve only 1.5 years. Tom, involved in multiple fraud cases, was sentenced to 7 years. My mother-in-law, as an accomplice, received a suspended sentence. The case is finally over, Frank said. Are you planning to exhibit your painting? Yes. Next month there will be a solo exhibition at the National Art Museum, and The Pursuit will be the grand finale. The curator couldn't stop praising this piece, believing it represents the innovative direction of contemporary art and marks the pinnacle of my career. Indeed, this painting, which incorporates Mary's jewelry design concepts, is in some sense a creation we made together. On the eve of the exhibition, I checked the arrangement in the gallery alone one last time, making sure every piece was perfectly lit and positioned. When I reached The Pursuit, I couldn't help but stop and gaze at it. Mary's face was vividly lifelike, her eyes inlaid with blood amber gleaming under the spotlight, as if she were smiling at me. For the first time in 3 years, I faced her directly, no longer painting only her back. Mr. George, a stranger's voice called from behind. Sorry to disturb you, but the gallery has been cleared. He turned around to see a young woman dressed in the museum's staff uniform. And you are? I'm the new curator, responsible for security in your exhibition area, she explained with a smile. I really like your work, especially this piece, The Pursuit. Thank you. I nodded. I'll be leaving soon. She didn't leave, but continued to gaze at the painting. That red gem is beautiful, almost as if it's alive. It's blood amber, I explained, a very rare gemstone. I know, she said softly, top-grade blood amber from Myanmar, containing plant fossils, extremely rare. I looked at her in surprise. You know a lot about jewelry? She smiled. I study jewelry design. I'm just working part-time here. For some reason, Mary suddenly came to mind. She, too, had an almost obsessive passion for and expertise in gemstones. If you don't mind me asking, who is the woman in this painting? She asked. My wife, I replied. She passed away 3 years ago. She was a jewelry designer. I'm very sorry, she said sincerely, then gestured toward the blood amber. This gem must mean a great deal to you. It was the last birthday gift she chose for me before she died, but I only found it recently. She nodded thoughtfully. Setting it into her portrait is the best way to remember her. For some reason, talking with this unfamiliar woman brought me a strange sense of calm. Perhaps it was her love for jewelry that reminded me of Mary. Sorry, I have to continue my rounds. She glanced at her watch. See you tomorrow, Mr. George. See you tomorrow, I replied, watching her leave. On the way home, I felt an unusual peace. The completion of The Pursuit seemed to mark the end of my search for Mary as well. Not forgetting, but remembering her forever in another way. The next day, the exhibition's opening ceremony attracted numerous figures from the art world and the media. The Pursuit undoubtedly became the center of attention, with people marveling at this innovative form of artistic expression. Amid the crowd, I noticed that curator standing aside, watching as well. Sunlight streamed through the skylight of the gallery, falling upon her, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw Mary's shadow. No, I shook my head, warning myself not to be deceived by mere resemblance. There would never be another Mary in this world, just as there would never be another unique blood amber. After the exhibition, The Pursuit was purchased by an anonymous collector for an astronomical price. I donated all the proceeds to a foundation supporting students in jewelry design, establishing a scholarship in Mary's name. Life slowly moved forward, and I began to accept new commissions and create new works. Occasionally, I would think of that curator with a unique insight into jewelry, wondering if she was still working at the art museum. Until one day, I received an email from HL. There were no words, only an image. A sketch of a ring design, the style strikingly similar to Mary's unfinished series. My heart raced as I replied immediately. Who is this? The response came quickly. Yesterday, you brushed past me by the cafe on the street corner, but you didn't recognize me. If you want to know more, wait for me at the museum entrance at noon tomorrow. Is it that librarian? How could she have a design so reminiscent of Mary's style? Filled with anxiety and anticipation, I decided to accept the invitation and find out for myself. The next day at noon, I arrived at the art museum half an hour early. The sun was shining, and small groups of visitors were coming and going from the exhibition hall. But there was no sign of the mysterious person. Just as I began to suspect this might be some kind of prank, a faint trace of perfume drifted by, a scent unfamiliar to me, yet it inexplicably reminded me of Mary. Mr. George, thank you for coming. The voice behind me made me turn around. It was the curator. Today, she wasn't wearing her uniform, but a simple white dress, completely different from Mary's style when she was alive. Did you send the email? I asked directly. She nodded. There are some things I want to tell you, but not here. Will you come with me? We walked through the small park beside the art museum and arrived at a secluded cafe. The whole time, I kept observing her. Her mannerisms, the way she walked, none of it resembled Mary. Yet her sensitivity to detail and her focused attention gave me a strange sense of familiarity. Who are you, really? The moment we sat down, I couldn't wait to ask. My name is Nicole. She looked me straight in the eye. I'm Mary's student. This answer caught me off guard. Mary had indeed taught jewelry design part-time at the Design Academy before she passed away, but she had never mentioned having any particularly close students. I took her advanced design class the year before she passed, Nicole explained. Her guidance benefited me for a lifetime. That still doesn't explain why your designs resemble her style so much, I said, half convinced. Nicole took a folder out of her bag. These are all notes from Ms. Nicole's class and her feedback on my work. You can look at the handwriting and confirm that it's really hers. I carefully examined the materials. It was indeed Mary's handwriting. There were even traces of the pale purple ink she habitually used. Before Ms. Nicole passed away, she was guiding me on my graduation project, Nicole continued. The theme was interwoven light and shadow, blending Eastern and Western aesthetic elements. She gave me a lot of valuable advice, and even showed me a sketch from a private project she was working on at the time. George's special birthday project? I blurted out. Nicole's eyes widened in surprise. You know about it? I only found out recently. I briefly explained the origin of the blood amber. I knew that blood amber would eventually find its way back to you, Nicole said with a smile. Nicole always said it was a destined gift. Is that why you contacted me? Because you saw the blood amber? Nicole was silent for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. Not entirely. After Nicole passed away, I've been trying to carry on the design philosophy she taught me. Some time ago, I happened to see the news about your eternity being stolen, and then I saw someone impersonating Nicole. I thought I should tell you a few things. She took a letter out of her bag. This is the last letter Nicole gave me after class before she passed away. She said if her surprise plan went smoothly, I should show you this letter. If anything went wrong and she was gone, I should still make sure you see it. I took the envelope. It was indeed Mary's handwriting, and it read, "To my dearest husband." The envelope had already been opened. I didn't know what was in the letter at the time. I just kept it as Nicole instructed, Nicole explained. It wasn't until I saw the news that I opened it. I hope you won't blame me. I carefully took out the letter paper and unfolded it to read. Dear George, if you are reading this letter, perhaps my surprise plan has gone awry. Don't worry, it's just that the plan has changed, and the form of the gift may be different now. The blood amber I picked for you is said to be known as the Eye of Rebirth. Legend has it that looking at the world through it reveals truths that are often overlooked. I hope it can become a turning point in your artistic career, leading you to see new possibilities. All these years, your paintings have always depicted backs, as if you're afraid to face something head-on. I hope this gemstone will give you the courage to paint the front, to capture true emotions. No matter what happens, please remember, love does not disappear, it merely changes form, like this blood amber, which, after millions of years, transforms from resin into a gem, yet still shines. Forever loving you, Mary. The handwriting became a bit messy at the end, as if written in a hurry. I stroked the paper, as if I could feel Mary's emotions at that moment. Thank you, I said, my voice choked with emotion. This means a lot to me. You're welcome. I'm just fulfilling Ms. Nicole's request, Nicole said with a smile. Actually, there's one more thing I'd like to ask your help with. What is it? I'd like to apply for the Mary Scholarship you established, she said, taking a design portfolio out of her bag. This is my graduation project, combining Ms. Nicole's ideas with my own innovations. As I flipped through the portfolio, I was surprised to find that while these designs bore traces of Mary's influence, they also possessed a unique style and innovative touches. In particular, a series called Metamorphosis cleverly combined jewelry with transformable elements, allowing the pieces to change form according to the wearer's mood and occasion. This is outstanding, I praised sincerely. Mary would be proud of you. A hint of joy flashed in Nicole's eyes. Really? I've always worried I couldn't live up to her expectations. You've already moved beyond the learning stage and developed your own style. That's exactly what she hoped to see. As we talked, sunlight streamed through the window and fell on Nicole. In that moment, I seemed to understand something. When Mary spoke of love changing its form, perhaps she wasn't just referring to the blood amber, but also to her passion for art and its legacy. Luna tried to impersonate Mary by mimicking her appearance, but she could never truly replicate who she was. Nicole, on the other hand, looked nothing like Mary, yet she inherited a part of her artistic vision and spirit. Perhaps this is the true gift Mary left me, not the blood amber, but a new possibility, a path out of the past. Nicole's graduation exhibition was held in a small gallery. Though the space was modest, it was exquisitely arranged. Her works were divided into 3 series, representing the past, the present, and the future, forming a complete narrative. This is a brilliant idea, I sincerely praised. From tradition to contemporary and then to the future, it showcases the evolution and possibilities of jewelry design. Nicole smiled and nodded. This was inspired by teacher Nicole. She always says that good design should look back at history, be grounded in the present, and look forward to the future. As I walked through the exhibition hall, I noticed a special display case in the corner, containing only one piece, a seemingly simple ring with a small red gemstone set in the center. This is. I leaned in to read the label, which said, in memory, dedicated to teacher Mary. Yes, I made it from a small piece of blood amber I bought with my own savings, Nicole explained. It can't compare to the quality of yours, but it's also from Myanmar. I examined the design of the ring closely. Clean, powerful lines, with fine silver threads encircling the blood amber, as if protecting the central gem, yet also seeming to radiate light outward. This is very similar to Mary's final design style, I said softly, but it also has your own unique touch. I wanted to create a piece that could both commemorate teacher Nicole and showcase my own style, Nicole explained. The blood amber represents her influence, while the outer design is the direction of my own development. The exhibition attracted quite a few industry insiders, including some well-known figures from the jewelry design world. After viewing the exhibition, an older female designer approached Nicole and offered her an internship opportunity. I stood by, genuinely happy for Nicole. In the evening, as the exhibition was drawing to a close, Frank arrived as well. Seeing me with Nicole, he gave me a knowing smile. "New friend?" he asked me quietly. "Mary's student," I explained simply. "Very talented." Frank nodded without asking further questions. After touring the exhibition, he gave high praise to Nicole's work. It blends traditional and modern elements, demonstrating both technical skill and artistic expression, quite rare. Nicole thanked him politely. This wouldn't have been possible without the guidance of teacher Nicole and teacher George. After the exhibition, the three of us went to a nearby restaurant for dinner. During the meal, Frank talked about recent trends in the art market, while Nicole shared her insights on contemporary jewelry design. The conversation was light and pleasant, and I realized it had been a long time since I had relaxed and chatted with others like this. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank received an urgent call and left early. Only Nicole and I remained in the restaurant, and the atmosphere suddenly became a bit quiet. "Mr. George," Nicole hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I've always had a question I wanted to ask you." "What is it?" "After you finished The Pursuit, what are you planning to create next?" The question caught me off guard. To be honest, ever since The Pursuit, I haven't had any new inspiration. That painting seemed to have drained all my emotions and creativity. "I haven't decided yet," I answered honestly. "It might take some time to find a new direction." Nicole nodded thoughtfully. Nicole once said that the hardest thing for an artist isn't creating a stunning masterpiece, but finding a way forward after reaching the peak. She really did say that, I recalled with a smile. Mary always saw further than I did. "Maybe," Nicole said softly, "you could try a new direction that combines your work with jewelry design? Like in The Pursuit, but taking it even further." I recalled what Mary mentioned in her letter about seeing new possibilities, and suddenly I was inspired. "You mean creating a series of works that combine painting and jewelry?" "Exactly," Nicole said excitedly. "Your paintings create emotion in two-dimensional space, while jewelry gives it tangible form in the three-dimensional world. The combination of the two would have an astonishing effect." The more we talked, the more engaged we became, even sketching a few concept designs on the restaurant's napkins. Nicole's ideas were fresh and bold, perfectly aligning with my artistic vision, yet bringing a new perspective. As we left the restaurant, Nicole suddenly said, "I have to confess something." I looked at her in confusion. "I reached out to you not only to deliver Nicole's letter, but also for a personal reason. I hope to learn from you," she said candidly. "I want to become a designer like Nicole, someone who not only creates beautiful works but also perfectly blends art with emotion." Her sincerity moved me. "You're already on that path, and you're doing very well." "Then, may I consult you often?" she asked a little nervously. Of course, I'd be delighted. On the way home, a series of new works already began to take shape in my mind. A cross-disciplinary art that fuses painting and jewelry, both as a tribute to Mary and as a new starting point in my artistic career. That night, I had a dream. In the dream, Mary stood in a halo of blood-red light, smiling at me and saying, "See, I knew you would find a new direction." When I woke up, I got out of bed immediately and began sketching for the new series. I decided to name it Rebirth. Not only representing the ancient life forever preserved in blood amber, but also symbolizing the rebirth of my artistic career, as well as the inheritance and development of Mary's artistic vision. A week later, I submitted a new series proposal to the gallery and received an enthusiastic response. The curator even suggested holding a special exhibition themed Between Dimensions, a dialogue between painting and jewelry. For this project, I invited Nicole to join the team as a jewelry design consultant. She had just graduated from design school and was both excited and nervous about the opportunity. "Am I really up to the task?" she asked me in the studio. "You understand Mary's design philosophy better than anyone," I assured her. "That's exactly what I need." In the days that followed, we worked at a feverish pace. We created during the day and discussed at night, sometimes even working through until dawn. Nicole's ideas flowed endlessly, and I transformed those thoughts into concrete artistic expressions. In the process, I rediscovered the pure joy of creation that I hadn't felt in a long time. One late night, when we finally finished the design for our first piece, Nicole clapped her hands excitedly. This is amazing. Teacher Nicole will definitely love it. At the mention of Mary, she suddenly realized her slip and looked at me nervously. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It's all right, I said with a smile. I think Mary really would like it. She always hoped I could step out of my comfort zone and try new ways of expressing myself. Nicole let out a sigh of relief, then hesitantly asked, Professor George, may I ask you a personal question? What is it? When you faced the woman impersonating Professor Nicole, how did you see through her? I mean, from the news reports, she seemed like an exact copy of Professor Nicole. I pondered for a moment. Superficial resemblance is easy to achieve, but a true personality cannot be duplicated. Mary's perception of art, her attitude toward life, the way she handled details, these were all unique. Just like a work of art, Nicole mused, no matter how perfect a replica is, it can never capture the soul of the original. Exactly. We worked through the night again, and finally established the overall framework for the Rebirth series. 7 pieces, each blending elements of painting and jewelry, together telling a story of loss and recovery, death and rebirth. As our collaboration deepened, my relationship with Nicole gradually shifted from teacher and student to partners, both mentor and friend. Sometimes, when the light traced the gentle contours of her focused profile, I would unconsciously think of Mary. But soon, I realized that this association wasn't due to any physical resemblance, but rather that same dedication and passion for art. George, you look much more spirited lately, Frank remarked at a gathering. It's been a while since I've seen you so full of life. Yeah, the new project has helped me rediscover the joy of creating. Nicole's a good girl, Frank said meaningfully. Talented, and she really understands you. I understood his implication, but just smiled without responding. There was indeed a special understanding between Nicole and me, but it was more rooted in our shared passion for art than anything else. At least for now. The creation of the Rebirth series took 3 months, longer than expected, but the results were stunning. Each piece was a perfect fusion of painting and jewelry art, offering both the pleasure of viewing as a flat image and the discovery of 3-dimensional effects brought by the jewelry elements from different angles. A week before the exhibition opened, I received an unexpected visitor, Luna. She had served her sentence and was released early. She looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but her eyes were clearer. I came to apologize to you in person. She stood at the studio door, her voice low, for everything I have done. I didn't respond immediately, but simply invited her in to sit down. I know that an apology can't make up for the loss, she continued, but I want you to know that I truly regret it. How is your sister's illness? I asked. She looked up in surprise. You know. I guessed. You said you needed money for a reason, and I think that must have been true. Yes, she nodded. My sister's surgery was a success, and now she's fully recovered. For the past 3 years, I've been thinking about how to make up for my mistakes. Even though I may never be able to. I was silent for a moment, then said, in a way, your appearance actually helped me. What do you mean? It forced me to confront the past, to re-examine my memories with Mary, and ultimately to find a way forward. I pointed to the sketches of the Rebirth series on the wall and briefly explained this new project. Luna listened quietly, a look of genuine respect in her eyes. I'm glad you were able to find a new beginning from that nightmare, she said at last. I hope I can find my own path to rebirth as well. As she left, she handed me a small package. These are some simple pieces of jewelry I made in prison. The craftsmanship is rough, but each one represents my remorse and blessings. I hope you can accept them. Opening the package, I found several small trinkets handmade from fine wire and colorful glass beads. Though simple, it was clear the creator had poured their heart into them. Nicole happened to come into the studio at that moment. Seeing the trinkets, she asked curiously, "What are these?" I told her about Luna's visit. You forgave her? Nicole was a bit surprised. Not exactly forgiveness. I said thoughtfully, it's more like understanding. Everyone has their own hardships and choices. What's important is how we learn and grow from our mistakes. Nicole nodded pensively, picking up a piece of jewelry to examine it closely. The craftsmanship is rough, but the concept is ingenious. This person seems to have a talent for design. Perhaps, I said, everyone has the possibility of being reborn. On the day of the exhibition opening, Numerous figures from the art and jewelry worlds gathered together. The Rebirth series received unprecedented acclaim. Critics called it a model of cross-disciplinary art, and the gallery owner was overjoyed, announcing plans for a nationwide tour. In the crowd, I saw Luna. She was dressed simply, standing quietly in a corner, admiring the exhibits. Our eyes met in the air. She nodded slightly, then walked away. "Who was that?" Nicole asked, standing beside me. "Someone searching for Rebirth," I replied. Nicole seemed to understand and asked no more. We stood side by side before the pursuit, watching the blood amber refract a strange light under the lamps, like the silent burning of life's flame. "Thank you," I whispered to Nicole. "Without you, this series might never have come into being. It was your philosophy that guided us, teacher Nicole," she replied modestly. I was just fortunate enough to be the messenger. In that moment, I suddenly understood the true meaning of what Mary had written in her letter. Love has changed its form. Love exists not only in memory and longing, but also in inheritance and innovation, shining brightly in every spark of artistic creation. And I, at last, had learned how to begin anew after loss, to embrace rebirth while still searching. The success of the exhibition exceeded everyone's expectations. In just 1 month, the Rebirth series was reported on by major media outlets and even attracted the attention of the international art world. A renowned auction house extended an olive branch to me, hoping to include several pieces in their annual highlight auction. "This is an unprecedented opportunity," Frank said excitedly. "If the deal goes through, you'll become a top player in the contemporary art market." I wasn't particularly concerned with commercial success, but I did feel the joy of having my work widely recognized. More importantly, this series opened up a new artistic path for me, freeing me from the creative shackles of the past 3 years. Nicole benefited as well. As the project's jewelry design consultant, she received high praise from the industry. Several well-known jewelry brands reached out to her, hoping she would join their design teams. "Which offer are you planning to accept?" One night, as we were tidying up the studio together, I asked her. "To be honest, I'm still hesitating." Nicole paused her work. "These are all great opportunities, but..." "But what?" "But I want to keep working with you." She looked straight into my eyes. "Rebirth is just the beginning, isn't it?" Her candor surprised me a little. Indeed, the success of this series had opened up many new creative possibilities for us, but I wasn't sure if I should continue such a close working relationship. "You should consider your own career development," I said tactfully. "These opportunities are very rare for young designers." Nicole seemed to sense my hesitation and nodded gently. "I understand." In the days that followed, we were both busy and rarely had the chance to talk alone. A week later, Nicole told me she had decided to accept an invitation from a French jewelry brand and would be going to Paris to work for 2 years. "Congratulations," I said sincerely. "It's a very good choice." "Thank you," she replied with a smile, though a fleeting, elusive emotion flashed in her eyes. "I think this is the best arrangement for both of us." Before Nicole left, we held a small farewell party. Frank, the curator, and a few mutual friends came. The atmosphere was warm, tinged with a hint of sadness. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank found an opportunity to pull me aside. "Are you really going to just let her go like this?" "What do you mean?" I pretended not to understand. "Don't play dumb, man," Frank said bluntly. "You have feelings for her. That's obvious." "That's just professional rapport," I argued. "Is that so?" Frank looked at me meaningfully. "Then why have you been so distracted ever since she decided to go to France?" I was at a loss for words. In fact, these past few days I had indeed felt an inexplicable sense of loss, but I kept telling myself it was only because I had lost an excellent partner. "I know what you're worried about." Frank lowered his voice. "You feel like you're letting Mary down, don't you?" I remained silent. He had touched upon the deepest concern in my heart. "Mary has been gone for 3 years now." Frank gently patted my shoulder. "She would want you to be happy." After the party ended, I walked Nicole home. The night was tranquil as water, and the city lights flowed around us. "Thank you for your help and guidance these past few months." Nicole stopped at the entrance of her apartment building. "This experience has meant so much to me." "I should be thanking you," I said sincerely. "Without you, the Rebirth series would never have been completed." We fell into silence, as if both searching for the right words to say goodbye. "My flight is the morning after tomorrow," Nicole finally said. "I still have some things to take care of tomorrow. So, this is probably the last time we'll see each other. 2 years will pass quickly. I tried to make my voice sound light. Paris is a beautiful city. You'll like it there. She nodded, a complex emotion flickering in her eyes. Professor George, there's something I've always wanted to tell you, but never found the right opportunity. What is it? I chose to study jewelry design because I saw Nicole's works. She took a deep breath, or more precisely, because I saw the pieces Nicole designed for you. The way she perfectly fused love and art moved me deeply. I didn't know that, I said in surprise. I've always hoped that one day I could be like Nicole, creating art filled with emotion. Nicole continued, her words coming faster, as if afraid she might lose her courage. But now I realize that what I want even more is to create for a specific person, just like Nicole created for you. I understood her implication, and my heart suddenly began to race. Nicole, please don't respond, she gently interrupted me. I just wanted you to know before I leave. No matter how you feel right now, remember that starting over is not a betrayal of the past, but a way of cherishing life. With that, she rose up on her tiptoes and softly kissed my cheek, then quickly turned and walked into the apartment building, leaving me standing alone in the night, my mind in turmoil. After returning home, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep, replaying Nicole's words and that gentle kiss over and over in my mind. Suddenly, I remembered a small box in the study, where Mary's last complete letter was kept, a letter I had found while sorting through her belongings. But at the time, overwhelmed by grief, I never had the courage to open. Now, I finally mustered the courage to walk into the study and retrieve that delicate little box from the depths of the drawer. Inside lay a pale pink letter, bearing Mary's familiar handwriting. Dearest George, by the time you read this letter, you may find yourself at a crossroads in life, hesitating between moving forward or staying where you are. My greatest wish is that you can move bravely through life, as freely as your brush glides across the canvas. Love is not a shackle, but a liberation. Memory is not a burden, but a source of strength. If one day you meet someone who can rekindle the light in your eyes, please don't hesitate because of your longing for me. True love is wishing happiness for the other, even if there is no longer a place for oneself in that happiness. Remember, the days we loved each other were complete, with no need for regrets. And now, it's time to paint a new picture, my beloved. Forever loving you. Mary. Tears blurred my vision. It was as if Mary had foreseen my current situation and had already given me her blessing. She was always like this, always able to see further and more clearly than I could. At that moment, I made up my mind. Early the next morning, I drove straight to Nicole's apartment. Professor George? Nicole opened the door in surprise, clearly not expecting me. I have something to say to you. I looked her straight in the eyes, not as your teacher, but as George. I handed her Mary's letter. Nicole read it carefully, her expression shifting from surprise to being moved, and finally, her eyes grew moist. She truly was an extraordinary woman, Nicole said softly, handing the letter back to me. Yes, she was. I nodded. That's exactly why I believe her words. Nicole, cancel your plans for Paris. Stay and continue our collaboration, will you? Nicole looked at me in shock. Are you serious? I've never been more serious, I said quietly. Rebirth is not just the name of an artwork, it's a possibility in life. Are you willing to explore that possibility with me? Her answer was a firm embrace, warm and real, like the first ray of sunlight after a long winter. In that moment, I felt as if Mary was somewhere, smiling down on us, blessing this new beginning. Life is like that blood amber, enduring countless ages of change and sedimentation, ultimately transforming into an eternal radiance. And I, at last, understood what true pursuit is, what true rebirth means. A year later, Nicole and I unveiled our second joint project, Interwoven, at the National Art Museum. This series was even bolder and more innovative than Rebirth, blending Eastern and Western aesthetics with various art forms. Critics hailed it as a significant breakthrough in contemporary art. At the opening ceremony, Nicole held my arm as we faced the media interviews and congratulations from the audience together. She wore a simple white dress, and around her neck was the Eye of Rebirth necklace we designed together. She completed the jewelry part based on my painting. Your collaboration seems even more in sync than your last project, a reporter asked with a suggestive smile. Nicole glanced at me, and we exchanged a smile. Yes, both in art and in life, we found the perfect balance. This indirect answer drew a round of good-natured laughter from the reporters present. My relationship with Nicole was no longer a secret, but we always kept a low profile, letting the public's attention remain focused on our artistic creations. After the exhibition, we drove out to a small hill in the countryside. There stood an ancient oak tree, beneath which Mary's ashes were laid to rest. This was the place we chose, rather than a traditional cemetery, natural, peaceful, just like Mary herself. "Mary, the exhibition was a great success today," I said softly to the stone beneath the tree. "Nicole's designs were admired by everyone, just as you once predicted." Nicole crouched down and placed a bouquet of white daisies in front of the stone. "Teacher Nicole, I've been working hard to become the kind of designer you hoped I would be. I hope you can be proud of me." A gentle breeze stirred, and the oak's leaves rustled softly, as if it were Mary's reply. On the way back, Nicole suddenly said, "I've been thinking about something." "What is it?" "If that woman who pretended to be Ms. Nicole hadn't appeared, you might never have found the blood amber, never created the pursuit, and we might never have met." Her words made me fall into deep thought. Indeed, it was the series of events triggered by that deception that ultimately led to everything now. It feels as if, in the unseen, some force has been orchestrating it all. "Perhaps that's the irony of fate," I said softly. "Sometimes, the worst beginnings can lead us to the best endings." When I returned home, I received an unexpected package. Upon opening it, I found a delicate little box containing a handmade ring. Though simple, the craftsmanship had improved greatly compared to the pieces I had seen before. There was a note attached. "Mr. George, thank you for your kindness and understanding a year ago, which gave me the courage to start over. Now I have found a job at a small jewelry shop, and my life is gradually getting back on track. This ring represents my gratitude, and I wish you happiness and well-being on your new path." "Luna," I handed the ring to Nicole. After examining it carefully, she remarked, "Her skills have improved a lot. She truly is talent." "Some mistakes in life shouldn't become permanent scars," I sighed. "Everyone deserves a second chance." That night, we sat in the studio, discussing ideas for the next series. Nicole suddenly proposed a bold idea. I was thinking, maybe we could try connecting the different stages of our work to create a complete narrative. From eternity to quest, then to rebirth, and intertwined, they're actually different phases in a person's life journey. "You mean?" "A complete story about loss, searching, rebirth, and integration," she explained excitedly, ultimately asking what is the most precious treasure in life. "Love." I finished her sentence. "No matter what form it takes." Nicole nodded, her eyes sparkling with creative fire. "We could call it the forms of love, an unprecedented artistic exploration." "Sounds like a long-term, ambitious project." "We have time," she smiled, holding my hand. "We have so much time." In that moment, I felt a powerful surge of creative inspiration, just like when I first began my artistic career years ago, filled with passion and possibility. But this time, I was not facing the blank canvas alone. 2 years later, the Forms of Love series was exhibited simultaneously in the world's 5 greatest art museums, causing an unprecedented sensation. Critics called it a milestone in contemporary art history, blending painting, sculpture, jewelry design, and other art forms to create an entirely new artistic language. The final piece of the exhibition was titled Eternal Ring, a massive circular canvas depicting every form of love in life, familial, platonic, romantic, and the love for art itself. The edge of the canvas was inlaid with gemstones of various sizes, and under certain lighting, these gems would cast light onto specific parts of the canvas, revealing another hidden layer of patterns. The centerpiece of this work is a massive blood amber. Through intricate optical design, the light it projects perfectly outlines 2 embracing figures. One is Mary, the other is Nicole, symbolizing the intersection of past and present, the fusion of memory and rebirth. On the closing day of the exhibition, in front of the Eternal Ring, I knelt on one knee and proposed to Nicole. The ring was crafted from the very blood amber Mary had once prepared for me, designed by my own hand and fashioned by the finest jeweler. "This ring carries the memories of the past and the hopes for the future," I whispered softly. "Nicole, will you be the eternal ring in my life?" Her tears sparkled under the spotlight. "I will." Amidst the cheers, I remembered what Mary once said, "Love does not disappear, it merely changes its form. Yes, love does not disappear. It exists in memories, in art, in every rebirth and new beginning. It traverses time and crosses space, like that blood amber which, after millions of years, still shines, forever retaining the original warmth and brilliance of life. This is the answer I have been searching for all along. Between loss and gain, between seeking and rebirth, love remains constant, only appearing in different forms along the journey of life. And all we need to do is bravely accept this gift, no matter how it comes to us. On the day of the wedding, the sky was a clear, washed blue. Beneath the ancient oak tree that had watched over Mary, we exchanged our vows. A gentle breeze stirred, making the leaves whisper as if blessings were drifting in from another world. No matter when or where, Nicole said softly, we'll always remember that it was she who brought us together. Yes, I squeezed her hand, and we will always cherish this gift. In the brilliant sunlight, the blood amber ring gleamed, radiant as life itself, enduring the passage of time, yet still shining bright.